Okay, Bitcoin went down some more on the Monday session there, and now we pushed through the support zone low right here, but we're trying to get a bottoming tail at the moment with the Tuesday session. Now, that's completing now the bullish divergence here. Again, looking at the closes, that's completing. We have it as of yesterday with the close of the Monday session, or even the Sunday session, you still had a divergence present with the RSI. And again, while the MACD is dipping just a little bit lower, you still have it on the histogram. The MACD is likely getting a Class B divergence where you're getting these two equal bottoms and price goes lower. That's a Class B divergence. But the histogram is getting a higher low. So again, these divergences are likely going to play out before the week ends on Bitcoin, and you'll probably come up here and recover back up towards this high and the trend line. Now, again, I told you we need to clear this trend line and this peak right here, and the peak right here, this 90, really 93, 94, 95,000 range right in there. We need to be able to clear that area if we're going to go back up and test the 100 period moving average. You got a possible double bottom or inverse head and shoulders if we go up here and test this level and then turn down off of the 50, coming down here and coming back up here. You've got a possible inverse head and shoulders that could carve out, or you got a possible double bottom pattern right here if we don't pull back into this trading range. But if we break out of it, pull and just keep going, then you can go higher and not pull back into the trading range, but a possible inverse head and shoulders pattern. And again, if we rally up to the trend line above that, you got the 50 period, you've got the 100 period moving average here. We're bouncing off the 200 here. We're below it now. So is the stock market. So we're going to be watching to see if we recover. And then you got the horizontal resistance there in the low 100,000, just high 98,000, 99,000 range or so. Above that, you have the 109,000, 108,000 area up here. So that's resistance areas directly overhead. But we'll see if we try to get a recovery here, here in the daily time frame. We're trying to get a bottoming tail at the moment, but the session is very, very young. We'll be watching to see if we get a big, big recovery, a bottoming tail, or do we end up going lower? We're right at that trend line. I told you if we break this level, we're testing that trend line in the weekly time frame from the 2023 low. So that's where we're at right now. Now, the stochastic has come down. It's also forming a divergence right here. So again, I'll be watching to see if the stochastic, and it looks like a Class B divergence as well, tries to recycle back up here. Now, we had little divergences over here at this 200-day moving average, and I told you it could evolve into a larger divergence. Again, notice the RSI. We had the negative divergence over here, building upon this level, going to 109,000, and then we dropped into the negative region, and we remained there into the negative region. And the pull-ups to the RSI have been where the sellers have been coming in as we've stalled surrounding our 50-period moving average, stalling at the 50-period moving average. We struggled to get back above it. And again, this is where the sellers were hovering and the cloud once we broke it. So that's where we're at. So again, we're likely going to go back up to this cloud and the 100. We'll be watching to see if we go up and try to break the trend line or go up to it and stall. But again, watch that 93 to 95,000 area. 93, 94, 95,000 is resistance. So we'll be watching all of that. You have the gap fill up there. And you now have a couple of gaps there on the IBIT ETF. Remember, NASDAQ and Bitcoin are doing the same thing. NASDAQ's breaking the trend line, or testing it, and it has slightly broke it, but it's testing the 50-week and the 50 EMA, the 50 simple EMA, and the, let me just bring up the EMA. Here it is in brown. Again, hitting it and then bouncing, hitting it, bouncing for the NASDAQ, and then here we are. We're just below it. We dipped slightly below it here. We'll be watching to see if we rebound and go back to fill the gap before the week ends. But Bitcoin and NASDAQ are both testing their trend lines. Here, back to the 2022 trend line and the 50. Bitcoin back to the 2023 low and the 50. So again, we're going to be watching to see if we recover with both. Right now, as I'm making the video here, Bitcoin on the Tuesday session is currently up 1.14%. Again, testing this trend line, slightly dipping below it. You got horizontal support again between 74,000 and this 77,000 area. Previous low was 78, and we dipped right below that to form this divergence. You're likely going to get a bounce right here at this trend line and our 50-period moving average. And the Bitcoin average price, a little hard to see it, but see this little line right here? That's Bitcoin's average price right below it as well. It was at Bitcoin's average price where we found the bottom at 49,000 at the trend line and where we found the higher low at 52,000. Okay, so again, we tested Bitcoin's average price and we bounced off of it. We had dropped below the 100-period moving average, but we bounced off Bitcoin's average price. Lose Bitcoin's average price, then you're in serious trouble. Likely going to bounce off of Bitcoin's average price, the trend line, and rebound back up to test the 100-period moving average. That's what's likely going to be the case. It's coming in at the, right now, it's coming in at the low 90,000 range. It looks like right around the 96,600 area. It's just over that, but it's going to drop as we move towards it. So it'll be lower than that. So you want to be watching, 94, 95, 96 right in that area because when we gravitate towards it, that's going to be resistance. You got to be able to get back above the 100-period moving average to rebound and recover. Here's the 2023 trend line, going back to the 2023 low on the daily chart. Let's look at it on the weekly chart. But keep in mind the divergences, the trend line, Bitcoin's average price, horizontal support right below that at the 74,000 area. Currently, Bitcoin is trading at the 79,000 area. It was as low. Well, its low was 76,581. So it was in the 76,500 area, and we've rebounded. Now we're at 79,350 or so. The divergence and the confluence of support here, I expect we're likely going to bounce surrounding this trend line. Let's look at the trend line in the weekly time frame, and you'll see you got Bitcoin's average price, you got the 50-week moving average there as well, just like on NASDAQ. You don't likely see a bounce on NVIDIA because it's hitting its lower boundary of the channel right here after selling off. So we're probably hitting that, and it's down about 27% or so, 28% for the low. I didn't update this. This is from the previous close. But we're hitting the trend line right there. And again, pretty good chance, and we're trying to form divergences on some indicators, but a pretty good chance you're going to try to rebound at these trend lines of support with Bitcoin and the NASDAQ and NVIDIA here at this lower boundary channel line. And here's a better picture of the EMAs and the SMA on NASDAQ. But look at this. Again, we punctured this area. Well, we did that over here. We had a trend line right here, and we got just back above it, but then the trend resumed. Now, I don't know if NASDAQ's going to make new highs or not, but I don't think NVIDIA is. That's the case, and NASDAQ may not. You got a possibility of a top because of those candlesticks that we've been getting in the monthly time frame. Could we get back above this trend line before the week ends? And again, you're finding support at the 50 EMA right here, and here we are doing it again. You found resistance at it here, and right here, and right here, and then you got above it, and it flipped. So could we see a rebound with NASDAQ? Could we see a rebound with Bitcoin at the 50, and even S&P is testing the 50? But can we get a bounce on Bitcoin here in the weekly time frame at the 50 period moving averages? I have the 50 simple moving average and the 50 EMA here, and we're testing both with this trend line. Slightly breached it, but then now trying to bounce off of it here in the weekly time frame. In order to keep dumping, you got to take out the 50 like we did over here. We took it out. Here's this 50 simple moving average, and here's the 50 EMA, the lighter green. And again, you got to take out those 50 period moving averages. We came back and we tested it here, and then you got your bigger dump, and you stayed below those moving averages. And here we've been finding support at them. So again, you got a good shot. You're going to try to bounce here, and if you have a peak on Bitcoin, you'll get a lower high and then probably break that trend line. If you haven't peaked yet, you'll get a higher high and go up and challenge that peak, and then we have that channel that we haven't reached, and the S&P and Bitcoin haven't reached their channel, so it still could do it. Now, the risk is that the recession starts immediately and we have Bitcoin in the market peak, because they're going to peak right before the recession starts. If we buy a little bit more time, 2007, the second inverting of the yield curve, which we've just had, and that happened in July 2007. The market peaked later, a few months later, in October of 2007, and then the recession hit in December. I don't know if it drags out that long, but again, we're getting the markets are getting rattled by the negative GDP forecast from out of the Atlanta Fed there on the GDP now forecast, which is currently coming in at negative 0.24%. So there's concerns about that, and then the tariffs and concerns about inflation. We'll get the CPI data here on Wednesday before the market opens. We'll be watching that. It's to come in cooler. If it does, do we get a relief rally? You know, you got this news, the Trump administration apparently making banks more friendly towards crypto. We'll see what happens with that. Let me just bring this up close, because this is a trend line I'm watching now. NASDAQ breached it. What it looks like by the end of the week, Bitcoin slightly breached that trend line right there. And again, you've got your 50 simple moving average and your 50 EMA. The darker line is the simple moving average, and the lighter line, the light green one, is the EMA. Here we are, right at those levels. And right here, we also breached it at the low in August and at the low in September, but then bounced off of the trend line, which we're at right now, and bounced off of the moving averages there. So both of them, and here we are again. So we'll be watching to see what happens here. I'm continuing to watch the IBIT ETF. We got these gaps. You got the gap up here at 53.41. That's when Bitcoin really started to break down to the sideways trading range it was going in. It really broke down, and we ended up getting that gap when we took out the January low here with IBIT, and that's when Bitcoin took out the January low. We had a drop. Got the bullish diversions here, and that gave us this rebound surrounding the announcement of the crypto strategic reserve, and then we sold off. And again, we had the possible higher low. There was a shot that it could hold up, but it didn't, and we rallied up, and then we've now taken that level out. So again, you got another gap here, 49.41, 53.41. I expect you're going to go back and fill these gaps on IBIT, and then we'll be watching, because you got this multiple point divergence. You got a triple bullish divergence over here. Now you got a quadruple bullish divergence right here. That's the strongest reversal signal in technical analysis. The same thing going on here with the MACD. The MACD is forming a divergence here, right here. It's not a multiple point, but it is a divergence nonetheless. And here on the 60-minute chart of IBIT, this is almost equivalent to the 4-hour chart, and we're oversold and trying to turn back up at the very end of the session. So something's going to happen in all likelihood that's going to give us a big, powerful rally later in this week that's going to come back up and recover off of the trend line and the 50-week moving averages, and Bitcoin's average price, if we do go lower, is directly below that trend line. So you've got a confluent and horizontal support from the March high as well. So you got a lot of support going on here. You're going to get a technical bounce here, and more likely a reversal to go back up to try to challenge 100,000 again. We'll be watching. But IBIT has these gaps, so be watching IBIT. You go back and fill these gaps. Bitcoin will likely be going up to that 100 period moving average for a test that I've been talking about. So look at the 4-hour chart on Bitcoin. You got divergences in the daily time frame, and then you got it on the 4-hour chart. You got it on the 60-minute chart of IBIT. So again, this divergence gave us this bounce here. Now you've got this multiple point divergence here. Again, a quadruple bullish divergence. So again, it's a pretty good shot. You're going to get a rebound here. And again, you're hitting the trend line of support. You're hitting Bitcoin's average price. You're hitting the 50-week moving averages. You know, that 2023 trend line I mentioned a moment ago, horizontal support is directly below. And then you got the divergence going on here. So if we go a little bit lower, Again, you've got Bitcoin's average price and horizontal support. If we bounce right here, you've got those 50-week moving averages in the trend line that you'd be bouncing off of. So again, we're trying to get a little hammer here on the 4-hour chart. We'll see if we can recover, and then we'll see if we rebound with a possible double bottom pattern, because you got a bottom here, and then you got a potential bottom here, or maybe an inverse head and shoulders, but it's could be a double bottom if we come up here, and then the breakout would really be clearing the trend line and clearing this 94,000, 93, 94,000 area. What did we get up to with that strategic reserve announcement? It was about 94,000, right? 94. It looks like it was 94,000. So that's the confirmation line to a possible double bottom pattern. Now here we are down here at 76,000. Let me just measure this. Let's see, 90. It looks like 95,100 or so. You got 76,500. So it's $18,500. If Bitcoin were to rally off 76,000, it would go back 18,500, nearly 20,000, 18,500, which would, the measurement, if that pattern played out, if we in fact have a double bottom pattern, if that pattern played out, it would take Bitcoin to 113,600, which would be above the 109,000 high. That's if the pattern, there's no guarantee a double bottom, it's a chart pattern, but that would be the objective target, would be 113,000 if we have a double bottom pattern. And again, the second bottom often slightly takes out the first low, which is what we have here, and slightly taking out that support zone. So keep that in mind, that the pattern does measure to 113,000, but there's no guarantee we get there. You have to be able to clear the resistance levels, a 100 period moving average, the Ichimoku cloud up there, and the 50 period moving average, and all the rest of it, the horizontal resistance. There's a lot of resistance. But I'm just telling you, you've got a shot at a possible double bottom pattern for Bitcoin. So here, let me just zoom out here so you can see this again. We're coming back down into the support zone. We tried to rally back up. We couldn't get back up into this area here. We couldn't get back up above the declining trend line we saw in the 4-hour chart a moment ago. But we've now come down, and we're trying to get a couple of bottoming tails here just underneath this low right here, just slightly underneath it. That was a low at 78,000. We hit 76,500, 583 or something. So just slightly below that level. If we can bottom, we flip the bars back to bullish, back to green, and break the downward trend line. You got a little channel here. Then again, we could be on our way to this resistance zone right here. Again, this peak right here, this peak right here. That again is between that 93 to 95,000 area. So this is what I'm watching. If we break this downward trend line, that's the resistance area that I'm watching. If I just bring it up close, you can see the little channel. So if we get a bottoming tail here and we start heading our way up, back up here overnight or on into tomorrow's session, we'll be watching to see if we get a breakout. We get back above the support zone, having just getting a flush out, shake out move here. And I talked about, if you watch my last video, I talked about the flush out moves. Right now we're getting this flush out move below the support zone, having taken out that January low. Here we got a little miniature version of that right here. So a little flush out move right here, taking out this level that could be a double bottom pattern. So we'll be watching to see if we get back up above the downward trend line here. And if we start flipping bars back to green, then momentum can shift for the short term or maybe longer. We'll be watching. If Bitcoin can flip back to bullish on the intraday chart, the 4-hour chart, and the daily chart, we get these divergences starting to turn momentum back to bullish, then again, we need to flip the bars back to green here in the daily time frame. And again, they've been red. After we peaked, got a lower high, and we started to turn back down, and that was it. And they've been red ever since. The same thing after the December top. And that really formed this double top pattern. You had 108,000 over here. You had 109,000 over here. And that was at the trend lines of resistance in the weekly time frame I talked about at the time. You had the low over here, 89,000. And that really was a double top pattern. 9,000 minus 89,000, basically 20,000. The risk is if we go down beyond 74,000 to 69,000. I don't know that that's going to play out, but that is the risk. Now you're forming a possible double bottom pattern here, more condensed. But if we bottom out here, we're likely going to gravitate towards this trend line right here. Again, I don't know that we lose the low set, the 74,000 area. That's where you have key support. So if we could bounce, we'll be watching this trend line. We'll be watching this horizontal resistance zone. And if we can end up clearing that, then you can go back and test the 100 period moving average in the cloud. Again, the 50 and the 100 are going to keep dropping. So again, it might be near this area by the time we reach it, unless we reach it very, very quickly. If we're going to change the trend, we got to start seeing green bars here. We are seeing divergences. We are seeing divergences develop all over the place with Bitcoin. It's moved lower, but indicators are making higher lows. We're seeing that. I've been talking about this. We're seeing divergences form everywhere. Intraday, in the 4-hour time frame. We're seeing it in the daily time frame. We're seeing it all over the place. But the divergences have got to flip the cloud. We got to be able to see Bitcoin get back above the 200 period moving average. Here's Bitcoin's average price directly below that horizontal support level, 74,000, directly below. Got to be able to get back above the 10 and 20 period moving average. That's where we've been stalling out, is that 20 period moving average. And then we got to be able to clear that declining trend line. Directly above that is a 100 period, but now you have the 50 crossing below it. So the 50 is probably going to meet us somewhere near the trend line there. If we get a big rally back up into the low 90,000 range towards the 93 to 95,000 area where we have horizontal and declining resistance. Good chance Bitcoin's going to try to get a rebound in this area. Okay, and this is where we got a rebound right here, and it gave us a counter trend. And again, earlier with our rebound with the Monday session, we started getting another signal here, a bullish signal. Could see one by tomorrow or the next day. We could see, if we begin to turn right here, we could see a bullish signal. We tried to get one right here, but then we went back down and closed towards the lows. We'll see if we end up seeing one show up. Again, it did a good job marking the top, marked this here, level here. We went a little bit lower, but again, we had that run up and it marked the peak over here. So again, I'll be watching to see if another bullish signal develops in this area. But then we got to be able to clear all the red here. Got to flip the bars back to green. We got to be able to clear the trend line and again flip the cloud back to green. We got to clear these levels. And it's still very bearish here. We got to turn that around. Going to go up and either get a lower high or try to move to a higher high with Bitcoin. I've been warning you about the bullish divergence right here and these bottoming signals that formed right here. Again, it gave us a counter trend. We weren't able to flip the bars reflecting the trend. We weren't able to flip them back to bullish. They've been bearish ever since the peak over here. They've been bearish. Okay, but right now we're getting another bottoming signal, at least trying to. Now that won't be official until the session ends, but right now we went down to 76,500. We rebounded back up to 79,000, and you're trying to get this signal. Maybe we end up going down to Bitcoin's average price. Maybe we go to 74,000, but right now you're trying to get some bullish signals at the trend line at that 76, 77,000 area. Our low over here was 78,000, and we went just a little bit lower. So now we're seeing some similar bullish things trying to form right here as we had back over here, some of these bullish signals. If I just bring it up close, again, I talked about over here at the with the bottoming tail at the 200 period, we got all these bullish signals, and again, could start seeing the same thing now happen here. But this would have to flip things around and, flip the ribbon and flip the cloud and, totally flip the signals all back to bullish, not only momentum, but the trend if we're going to get a bigger rally back up. Here I have the bars reflecting momentum. They had tried to turn green. The ones with the trend still remained red, and then they turned back to red here. So again, trying to get this signal, the balance of power, move back into the negative territory. We've got to turn this around if we're going to try to bottom out with Bitcoin. So I'll be watching, do we have a double bottom type of a pattern that is developing here where we've moved slightly lower. So we'll be watching that. Just because that larger double top pattern plays out, got so much support, you got a really good shot of a technical bounce or reversal. We saw momentum try to flip on some signals. We got some blue bars right here, but we're not able to flip the cloud. We're not able to flip the ribbon. Everything remains bearish here for Bitcoin. So again, will this divergence that has now formed, will this divergence be able to produce a rebound or a reversal? And if we go a little bit lower, again, we have Bitcoin's average price directly below. This is where we bounced the August low and the September low. Our first peak in December at 108,000, we struggled. We sold off, and then 109,000, we couldn't flip things around. We tried to get some blue bars. We tried to flip it, but you couldn't flip the cloud. You could flip the momentum here, but then it went right back to bearish with the ribbon. So again, the ribbon is the momentum, and the cloud is the trend. So I'll be watching to see if we can flip the ribbon, momentum, and then flip the trend. And again, if we get above the peak over here and break the downward trend line, you know, getting above the 94,000 area, you might try to do that. 93, 94,000, 95,000 or so. Now, on my other cloud, we had to really get a breakout to flip the cloud right here. If we just clear the resistance zone, we'll do it right here. And again, got that possible double bottom pattern right here. So again, got to be watching to see if we can flip this around. Again, things peaked over here and weren't able to flip back to bullish when we went slightly higher. Just wasn't able to do it with that 109,000 peak. So again, I'll be watching. Can we flip it around? I didn't draw that very straight, but you can see what I'm talking about. Can we flip it around and clear this resistance area coming back up here? And again, seeing momentum signals turn back to bullish, and then flipping the trend signals for the swing move, start flipping them back to bullish here for Bitcoin. But we've got bullish divergences forming everywhere on indicators, and here you can see it right here. We've got bullish divergences, and again, we've got bearish momentum. We got to be able to get back into the positive portion of the cloud. We got to be able to flip this around, but these bullish divergences are just everywhere on Bitcoin.